You're listening to The Dragon Scourge, Chapter 5, By the Sword. Almost instantaneously, the clove and the wagon were next to a peaceful riverbank. All was silent, save for the calm rustling of the trees and the thick rainforest. Suddenly, several dozen grayish-blue faces emerged from the water, brandishing tridents and spear guns. At the head of them was the Sea Witch herself, Queen Dalmaraz. Her raven-black hair clung to her skin. Her eyes were pitch black, ageless, hard like polished stone. Naturally, the clove had no memory of their prior encounter, but she remembered him all too well. "You," she hissed. A spark of dark energy crackled at the end of her trident. Clove's eyes widened in panic, and his hands reached for the knife in his belt. However, Ethra quickly stepped in, and Kida hurriedly released the latch on the wagon door. The mermaid, who had been locked in the glass tank, flopped out into the riverbank. The mermen protectively closed their ranks around her, while the Sea Witch, Queen Dalmaraz, hurried to her daughter. The princess's face showed both pain and joy, but she remained silent. Ethra explained that the fairies had stolen her daughter's voice. Immediately, Queen Dalmaraz looked untrustingly at the clove, but after a moment she waved her hand toward him. He gasped in shock as he felt a warm, tingling sensation spread across his injured shoulder. "What? Can you restore my memories?" he asked hopefully. "No, but I know who can," she declared confidently. "It is a dangerous task. I would not advise." The clove's eyes hardened. "I am not afraid of anything," he snapped angrily. Queen Dalmaraz smirked. "Go south until you reach the bog. Seek there for the oracle who dwells in the hollow tree. She will be able to help you, if she chooses," she instructed. Clove's sharp yellow eyes quickly flicked up toward the sun, and indeed it was already beginning to wane. For a moment he paused and turned to say farewell to Kida and Ethra, but they were nowhere to be seen. Likewise, Queen Dalmaraz and her people slipped into the waters. The sun was fading, and the clove had some ground to cover. Without so much as a second thought, the clove took off into a steady-paced run, racing the sun as it went down south. As dusk was falling, the clove stopped at a clearing. He had covered a good 12 miles at least. However, he was confronted with an obstacle beyond the clearing. Mainly, the wooden palisade walls around the town and its guards. Clove kept his distance, remaining well within the shadows of the tree line to avoid detection from the sentries who were manning the outposts. He moved cautiously to get a better view of the road leading to the main gate. From his vantage point, the clove could see the torches and lanterns being lit. Members of the night watch, clad in tough leather and mail armor, stood on top of the arch on the battlements, as well as the 2 guards outside the wooden gate, leaning idly on their pike staves. The Clove hadn't a cent to his name, so purchasing food or finding any type of lodging was out of the question, but he still needed to pass through the town. Perhaps someone there would know about the oracle. The watchmen at the gate were ready for another long, mundane night when they heard the sound of the stranger's footsteps approaching in the distance. They quickly made out the dark outline of the lone traveler coming near to the torchlight, and quickly saw that he was carrying a sword. When Leclove heard the distinct sound of arrows being notched from on top of the wall, he froze in his tracks. "Halt!" barked the guard from the wall. Leclove spread out his hands in a peaceful gesture and said, "I seek the oracle who dwells in the bog beyond this town." At the mention of the oracle, the guard stiffened. Their stiff leather armor rustled as they shifted uneasily. The men at the gate lowered their pikes toward the ragged drifter. "Who sent you?" the guard on the left asked in a suspicious tone. The Clove clenched his teeth, already wishing he had just attempted to climb the wall while the guards were looking the other way. "The task is my own," he declared. Almost immediately the other guards posed another question. "Do you have any money?" Leclove scanned the large man's greedy eyes, which stared at him expectantly. Leclove slowly shook his head and grunted, "No." "Well then, if you can't pay the toll, you have to give up your sword and turn back the way you came, stranger," the captain of the gate declared from his post on the wall. Knowing full well that getting through the main gate was a lost cause, Leclove turned to leave. "That wasn't an option, Drifter," the watchman snapped. "Drop your sword on the ground and go your way." Leclove paused in mid-stride. His hand instinctively slipped down toward the knife tucked in his belt. There was no way he was going to give up the cutlass. As the 2 guards approached from behind him, Leclove let out a deep, cleansing breath and readied himself. He was tired, but not tired enough to give up his sword. "One wrong move, and we'll drop you right here," one of the guards warned. But just before they took action, the guards stopped at the sound of hooves galloping up the dark road. All turned to see 2 armored horsemen riding into view. Both carried great white banners, sporting a magnificent red phoenix. The watchman ordered the horsemen to halt, but before they could ask him their business or proceed to confiscate the sword from the drifter, things exploded into utter chaos. The Clove spun around, knocking a pikeman to the ground and grabbing one of the horse's reins. The archers on the wall took aim, but Leclove had positioned the horseman between himself and the wall, preventing them from getting a clear shot. Leclove dragged the rider right out of his saddle before he could remove the sword, and leapt onto the horse. "Shoot him! Shoot him!" ordered the gatekeeper. "No, wait!" the fallen horseman cried. "He's got my horse!" After seeing his fellow traveling companion fall, the other horseman chased after him, attempting to use the banner staff to knock Leclove down. Leclove, however, quickly grabbed the banner and rode off, dragging the other man out of his saddle. leaving him no other choice but to either let go or be dragged behind the horse as he barreled down the road. While the bannerman had the will to hang on, he lacked the strength and was quickly left in the dust, while the Clove made his getaway, taking his comrade's horse and his master's banner. Arrows hissed and whistled back over his head, but the Clove only laughed in triumph as he took off into the darkness. The night air raced through his hair. He knew he was going the wrong way, but he wasn't about to push his luck and give the archers another shot at him. As far as he was concerned, he'd come out ahead, and he just wanted to find a place to sleep. But that was not to be. As the horse rounded the bend, the Clove saw a heavily guarded royal convoy ahead. Polished armor and spears were illuminated by their bright lanterns. But there was no time to change course, and he was quickly intercepted by several heavily armored knights. The convoy came to a lurching halt as the Clove's horse and the knights' mighty chargers bucked about, snorting and pounding their hooves, spooked by the unexpected encounter. The knight stared at the wild stranger. The Clove had frozen stiff in panic when he realized that the riders he had attacked belonged to the very same convoy. It was about the same time the knights realized that this man was carrying their flag, but was obviously not one of their flag runners returning. They let out an enraged war cry and pulled out their broadswords, ready to hack him to pieces. The young Pyro snarled back and dashed the butt end of the flagstaff over the first knight's helmet, sending him toppling to the ground with a loud crash. The Clove turned about, wielding the staff, and swung it toward the knight on his left, but he smartly blocked it with his shield, and then countered with his mighty sword and cut the wooden rod into a pile of splinters, leaving the young warrior with only just a foot-long wooden stump of the flagstaff remaining in his hand. Regardless, the Clove made good use of it and hurled the broken shaft at the knight's unprotected face. The splintered end of the broken rod pierced the side of his cheek. The knight roared in outrage, and even though the cuts from the sharp, splintered edges were hardly mortal, it gave the Clove the time he needed to dodge the arcing sword meant for his throat. However, he was by no means an expert horseman, and though he had avoided the blade, his white mare had not. The knight's steel blade slashed through the mare's muscled neck. The injured horse reared up onto its hind legs and whinnied frantically in pain and panic, sending the Clove flying out of the saddle. The still mounted knight wheeled his horse about, brandishing his sword threateningly above the still dazed horse thief. "Yield now, fool," the knight commanded, but before the soldiers could apprehend the fallen warrior, the Clove flung a fist full of mud and earth into the knight's eyes. Blinded, the furious knight swung his sword about wildly, nearly trampling over his own men as he shrieked in a fit of blind rage, "That son of a goat! Kill him! Kill him! Kill that bastard!" Too outnumbered to fight them in the open, the Clove fled on foot into the forest. He didn't get far, as he was too exhausted to keep running. His limbs ached and his lungs burned. He leaned against a large tree, gasping for breath, and pressed his face against the moist bark. He could hear the rattling of metal plates and mail, and see the soldiers' torches and lanterns as they hacked their way through the undergrowth. He could run no more. Seeing no other recourse, the Clove climbed up into the strong branches of the stout tree and held his breath as rows of armed men passed beneath him. He could tell that this was a very well-disciplined band of soldiers. They moved as a single unit, making it hard to pick out one as a target. But as the searchlines passed by, the Clove noticed one knight hanging back from the rest. His armor was pitch black, and he bore no plume or emblem of any kind. To the Clove's surprise, the dark figure snuffed out the torch with his heavy leather glove and pivoted behind the tree, coolly desiring to be undetected by his own fellow knights. Without thinking twice, the Clove dropped down from his branch and tackled the knight to the ground. The large man thrashed about, but try as he might, he couldn't break the Clove's hold around his neck. The struggle was brief, and the Clove's stranglehold muffled the knight's call for help. The Clove clenched his teeth and cursed under his breath as he waited for the big man's feet to finally quit kicking. No time to relish his victory. He knew the soldiers would double back soon, so he quickly stripped the knight of his armor and put on the black plates as best as he could, and hid the unconscious knight behind a fallen log, which was quite difficult. The armor felt awkward and heavy. It was far too big, but for now, the darkness was his only friend. As luck would have it, the columns of torches reappeared, led by 5 infuriated knights riding on horseback. Each bore individual colored shields of their individual family crests. The knights were livid, save for the orange knight, who bore the symbol of a lion. The large man howled in laughter. "Oh, that was an unexpected encounter," he remarked jovially, as if the entire thing had been a great joke. And the angrier his colleagues became, the more he laughed at them. "This is not a laughing matter, Shahid," snarled the Red Knight. "How did that bandit knock you off your horse, Ruketh?" the Orange Knight asked, taunting the Red Knight, known as Ruketh. "Shut your face! This wasn't a normal bandit!" "Shahid," barked the knight in red. The Clove recognized this was the knight he had fought in the road, by the large gash on the side of his face. When the knight in blue hailed the Clove, "How goes it, Silent One?" The Clove paused, not wishing to give himself away. Shahid interrupted. "Was it a tree or the bandit? You darned old mute." The Clove blinked. He couldn't believe his luck. He had taken the armor from a mute. Wasting no time, he slapped the trunk of the nearest tree in response, indicating that he had run into a tree, not the bandit. Shahid reared back and laughed heartily. "Another glorious day," he announced sturdily. "We have only a short way to get to the next town, where we can have warm beer, tavern wenches to chase, and hopefully a smithy to fix up Silent Knight's armor," he bellowed out, doing his best to lift the mood. But just as the soldiers began to rally in excitement, Ruketh, the Red Knight, snapped at the soldiers who were about to begin a good old marching song. "Stow it! Let's be off! Before something else happens!" He snapped impatiently. "I'm not sleeping in another damned leaky tent," he muttered as he irritably tried to wipe the blood from his face. There were some murmurs and chuckles through the ranks that followed, but the desire for rest and a hot meal made everyone quicken their pace to get moving again. The Clove, however, was not at all skilled with horses, and the mute knight charger pranced about restlessly, knowing all too well that he was not its master. And Clove cursed under his breath. Thankfully, one of the squires quieted the animal so that he could get on the horse's back. Desperately hoping to merely melt away, the Clove lingered back, looking for his chance to part ways from the caravan. When through the narrow slits of his helmet he spotted a gleaming gold-trimmed coach. Part of him was curious as what it would have been like to ride in one of those. He had never seen one before. But just as he was about to slip away, a richly dressed young nobleman riding a white horse pulled back and rode alongside him.
"Tell me, sir, do you believe in coincidence?" he inquired.
Though he did not raise his voice, there was a tinge of anger in it. The Clove held his breath and gripped his reins, refusing to respond, dreading that he might give himself away. Thankfully, the little snot had posed a rhetorical question and continued his little monologue.
"Because I believe in opportunity," he continued, "and that was one you missed."
Uncertain of what he was implying, the Clove looked away, keeping his eyes on the road. "Prince Nathias, you shouldn't wander so far to the rear, especially now. It's not safe out here," declared the Green Knight.
"It was not my safety that I was concerned about, Groon,"
the prince replied, and then rejoined the formation. Once the prince was out of the earshot, Groon turned to the Clove. "Listen, you old rust bucket. I know you and the prince are up to something. Mark my words, if you try to interfere, I'll personally end you." The visor hid the look of surprise on the Clove's face. The armor creaked as he sat up straight in an inquisitive posture. Groon continued, "You don't fool anybody. I know why you and the prince joins this expedition. If anything happens to the princess, mark my words, you'll pay for your treachery." The Clove's throat went dry, but he remained silent, just like his new name that the suit came with, all the while wondering what the hell did he get himself into now. This is The Dragon Scourge by M.R.R. Lopez. The end of Part 7. If you've liked what you've heard so far, like, subscribe, click that thing, and the other thing. Also, if you want to read along, this book is on Amazon. You can get a digital or a paper copy, and I really appreciate your support. And stay tuned. We'll continue on to Part 8 of The Dragon Scourge. Keep in mind, I am a independent writer and narrator. And, so, I'm just a guy with the microphone. I don't have any fancy studio equipment or anything. You probably can hear the rain on the tin roof as we talk right now. The egg cartons glued to the ceiling aren't quite cutting it. But if you would like to see the channel grow, then you can contact me at thedragonscourge@gmail.com. And if you want to send a happy birthday, advertise a local, business or something. My prices are very competitive and very reasonable, and I think we both can win. And that'd be awesome. And it's modern in this modern day and age. There are tons of books to read, and there's tons of music to listen to, and artists have to keep up with the times if they want to, keep the dream alive. And that's what I want to do, and open for different creative avenues for that to happen. And that's why I'm working on the audiobook, and trying to get into that side of things. And even if you just want to do something small, buy an ebook or a Kindle book for a couple of dollars and write a positive review. That helps me so much. And or if you want, even buy a paperback. But again, this day and age, and I know if you're listening to me on YouTube, you're probably really busy, and I understand that. I love audiobooks. That's why I'm putting my book in an audio version, and so you can contact me at thedragonscourge@gmail.com. I don't do the Facebook or the Twitter thing. I want to do this. I want to narrate. I want to illustrate. I want to write. And so, yes, we're going to go on to part 8 of the Dragon Scourge. This is going to be a fun series. If you stayed with us this long, I hope you continue with us. I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun. And part 8 is coming up next.